We've all heard a lot about the importance of building a diverse team. In a recent McKinsey study, they found that companies in the top quartile for diversity were 35% more likely to financially outperform their industry mean. But what does it truly feel like to be the unique or new voice of a group? I recently sat down and talked with longtime Afterburner team member Tracy LaTourrette, better known by her call sign Jackie O. And she's a pioneer in the world of aerial combat by being among the first female fighter pilots in the U.S. military. When she joined the Air Force Academy after high school, it wasn't her goal to become a fighter pilot because there were obstacles outside of her control. All she really wanted was to be a part of a great team. Jackie O shared with me what it was like to be a part of a diverse team and how new team members can acclimate to a new culture while still making a meaningful impact. Jackie O, welcome to the Business Thorcast.
Thanks, Thor. I'm happy to be here.
Great to be chatting with you. And we've talked about this in the past, but the very first event I did with Afterburner was with you in front of 2,000 people out in Indianapolis, Indiana. You remember that one?
I do. That was a lot of fun. You've been a rock star from day one.
Well, I remember you leading the way in that conversation, and you were obviously the lead for that event and took me under your wing and helped me just do my little 10-minute presentation to those 2,000 people, which I was obviously very anxious for, as you did the 50-minute presentation and the rest of the keynote for that huge crowd. I'd never seen so many people in one room gathered before, and I was very impressed with the way that you led the audience and that you communicated so effectively. I remember thinking then there's a lot I have to learn about the speaking world from people like you.
Well, I was happy to have you there, and it's fun that was so long ago, and here we are years later. I'm still doing the same thing.
Yeah, right. And you have such an interesting career and journey that you've been on. As I said in the intro, you graduated from the Air Force Academy. I didn't mention it earlier, but it was just within a decade of introducing the first females to the Air Force Academy in the 70s. In the late 70s, that was the first time a woman had graduated from the Air Force Academy or West Point or Annapolis. And so you were really breaking through those glass ceilings at every level. One of the first females who graduated in the first decade of that they had that take place at the Air Force Academy, and then to go on to fly fighter planes with the first wave of females that did that as well. Let's just hear the story initially. Why the Air Force Academy? Why at that time, such 18 years old? What pulled you in that direction?
It's funny. I grew up in Colorado, and so I was pretty fortunate to be able to have seen the campus at a really young age. My first experience at the Air Force Academy was on what felt like the most important day of my life at that time. I was there for the gymnastics state championships. And I remember walking into the halls for the first time. And this was just the gym. It wasn't even, where the cadets lived or the academic building or anything. It was just the gym. And I remember just walking in and feeling like I had to walk a little taller and execute a little better. The level of expectation you could just feel from that place was different. It was almost like you could feel the presence of all of these great, brave warriors that had gone before us, and and some who had paid the ultimate price, for our nation's freedom. And so just being there and being around that feeling, I don't know, there was just something about it. I knew I needed to be a part of it.
Yeah, I had that same experience. I remember visiting the academy and just thinking, this is bigger than me. And I was at such a young age and just very naive about the world, but I knew that this is A, going to be exceptionally tough, and B, going to be a rewarding experience nonetheless, and which most of the things worth having in life are. But you had some additional things to consider, because here you are. What's the percentage of females at the academy at that time, even though they had graduated for the past decade? What do you think the percentage was?
It was about 12%.
Yeah, so a really low percentage of females, and so that had to have been another distraction and a challenge going into that environment. Talk a little bit about what that journey was like for you in a male-dominated and as little as a decade ago, only male environment.
Well, I'm no dummy. I went to a school with mostly guys. I'm like, what girl doesn't want to do that?
Well said.
No, I knew going in that it was going to be tough. My parents gave me a poster of a world-class gymnast when I was little, put it up on my wall, and I still have it. Gave it to my daughter. It says, "Do not pray for an easy life. Pray to be a strong person." And so when I chose the academy, it was because I knew it would be hard. And I wanted it to be hard. I wanted the challenge. I had no idea what I would do when I got out, but I knew that whatever it was going to be, it was going to be extraordinary. And I knew that if I wanted amazing, I had to do what was hard, and it was exciting to me. And I got a nomination from then Vice President George Bush, so that kind of sealed the deal. You're not going to say no to to George Bush. So I showed up, and the very first day, basic training, day one. I don't think any of us forget that day, do we, Thor? But I showed up the first day in my pink T-shirt and my newly short, fluffy haircut. Apparently wasn't short enough because they immediately took care of that. And I remember trying to stand at attention for the very first time, and I'm smiling from ear to ear, and I'm trying to keep my face straight and my chin in. And my sister, 7 years older than me, we had been living in Canada that year, so she flew me down and dropped me off that day. And she said she almost didn't leave me there because while I'm standing there trying to be at attention, what was above my head in big, huge letters was "Bring me men." She was a little bit concerned to drop off her little sister there, who clearly didn't have any military bearing at all at that point.
Yes, and I remember that. They called it the Bring Me Men ramp. Everybody had to walk through that as they entered the academy for basic training. Their very first experience is walking under this big giant sign that says "Bring Me Men." And when it was all male, of course, that made sense. But now females are being admitted, and I got to believe that was a bit of just a confusing environment to start from the very second you walked into that not the warmest invitation.
No, that, and I had my big sunglasses on, covered most of my face. And I remember this guy got right in my face and he said, "Do you have a problem with your eyes?" And I was like, so it's just funny. But yeah, the whole experience right off the bat. But I was just so excited to be there. And, my brother is an Air Force pilot, and he's a retired lieutenant colonel. And, so he was a mentor for me. And he warned me. He's like, "You've got to show up with the right attitude. These people are not trying to destroy you. They're trying to break you down so they can build you back up the way you want to be. They're trying to create camaraderie, between all of you. They're trying to build a team here. And you've got to decide you want to be part of that. So you've got to let some of those little things, roll off your back." And so my biggest problem during basic training was actually trying not to smile. I would chew, I would hold my cheeks, my smile, in my teeth, and I wound up with sores in my mouth because I was trying so hard not to smile. I guess I was a little bit crazy, but I was just really excited to be there and be part of the whole thing.
Yeah, that definitely was not my experience. I had very little challenge not smiling as I'm being screamed at. But yeah, so now you're in this environment, and they obviously had to lower the bar for you, right? And you couldn't do as many push-ups as everybody else, and I know that's not the case. So why don't you tell that story too?
No, yeah. You want the pull-up story?
I want the pull-up story.
All right.
That poor guy who is going to be the recipient of this pull-up story. I hope he never hears this because he probably. I mean, I won't steal your thunder. Go ahead and tell it.
He's a good guy. So we're about halfway through basic training. We get to go out to Jack's Valley. We're out there. It's dirty. We're working hard. We've come together as a team a little bit at this point. We think we're starting to get things figured out a little bit, and they're still jamming 30 hours worth of work into a 24-hour day. Well, our cadre, who are simply upperclassmen, just a year, 2 and 3 ahead of us at the academy, they think it'd be fun for us basics to build them a horseshoe pit. So, I'm in there digging, and I'm in there, digging the horseshoe pit, and they say to me, they go, "Sailor, hand your shovel over to the next guy." So this guy comes over and takes a shovel for me to take a turn. And while he's grabbing the shovel, he says, kind of, he's joking, but he says it quietly to me. He says, "This is man's work." and he grabs the shovel from me. And of course, I had to make a smarty comment back to him. And I said, well, I can do more pull-ups than you. Well, apparently the cadre took that as a challenge. So they're like, the two of you, get over here. Like, drop the shovel. So we had to go do a pull-up contest. And he went first, and I gave him hey, just do one, because we don't want to wear ourselves out just for their amusement. So
right.
He does one pull-up, trusting me to get up and also do one pull-up. And of course, I get up and I do my one pull-up also, and we think we're pretty clever. And we finally have figured out their system a little bit. And that was great for about 10 seconds. And they're like, nope, now you got to do it for real. So then it was truly fights on. So he gets up and he does his pull-ups. And then I have the advantage of going second. So I get up and I do my pull-ups. And, needless to say, the poor guy had a rough remainder of basic training. He got teased a lot. But
how many pull-ups did you do?
I don't know, somewhere 30, 35. I was a gymnast. That's what we used to do. We did pull-ups.
You probably weren't worn out. You just stopped, right?
Oh my gosh, the poor guy, I felt bad. So.
And there's always the concern, and you hear people say, a couple of females just graduated from Ranger training this past year, and they said, aren't we lowering the bar for the team? Aren't we lowering the capabilities of the entire team? And here we are in a situation where I probably knew two people that could do 35 pull-ups at the entire Air Force Academy when I went through there, and you're going through and dominating and just showing that not only is the bar not lowered, but you're going to raise it for the rest of the team and set the standard going through. I just love that story.
Yeah, well, hopefully the bar's not lowered. I mean, that's to me that's huge. I mean, you've got to keep your standards high, and even if you're coming in as the new person who's different, if you're a woman or whatever, I mean, the last thing you want is for people to look at you and go, oh, well, you're here because you're a girl. It's important to be able to say I met those standards or I exceeded them. I think every girl that I know of that's been in a situation like that works really hard to try to make sure we're at least as good as, if not better than, the guys where they're competing with and against.
Yeah. And so now you make it through this incredibly difficult school for anybody, and you're also a Division I athlete at the same time. You graduate, and what are your thoughts moving forward? They're still not letting females into the fighter pilot cockpit at this point. So what is next for you after graduation?
So what is next for me is actually AWACS. I was a weapons controller in the back. I was directing the air battle and telling pilots where to go. My husband says I'm still telling pilots where to go. So I guess some things never change. That was actually perfect for me because I knew going into the Air Force Academy that I probably would never fly. I was nearly blinded as a baby. I had an infection in my eyes that kept me from naturally seeing 20/20, although I did correct to that. But I never expected to be a pilot, even when I started the application process. And I always said, if God wanted me to be a pilot, he'd have me pass the eye test. And then I just didn't worry about it anymore. It was in his hands. And I just focused on trying to practice the habit of excellence. So whatever opportunity was going to come my way, I would make sure that I was ready for it. So flying F-16s was the big, awesome surprise that I got, about a year after I graduated from the academy. I went in for my annual physical and actually passed the eye test. So that was the big sign. It's time to start flying.
You're one of the first females in a fighter cockpit within the first 5 to 7 years of females joining that cadre. So tell me about that experience. Now you're pulling 9 Gs, 9 times your body weight, trying to stay conscious in a fighter aircraft and breaking that glass ceiling as well.
So, it's funny, Thor. The only barrier I was interested in breaking was the sound barrier. And so to get that opportunity in my home state of Colorado, to come back and fly F-16s with the Colorado Guard was just incredible. It was very important for me that when I came in, I was their first girl. It was very important for me that I didn't change the mission. I just wanted to come in and participate in it. I didn't want to distract from anything. And that was very important to me. I just wanted to be part of the game. And so there were some things that I did to try to make sure that, that I would never slow the team down.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting concept because, basically you're saying I want to do this for the team, and the team is so important for us. At some point, we may be asked to give our lives for the team that we join as fighter pilots, and it's insightful to hear you say that as you're joining this, it wasn't for you or to have a story in a book later on, or even to do this podcast that we're doing right now. This is just incidental to the fact that you were joining a team that you wanted to contribute to.
Yeah, it was, when you sign on the dotted line to join the military, no matter what your job is, you're signing up to be one of the few people who have decided that, you know what, I'm going to provide the enemy the opportunity to die for his country because I love mine enough. And hopefully I won't have to make the ultimate sacrifice as some of our bravest warriors have done. But, to be part of that group is something that I didn't take lightly. I mean, I've seen other parts of the world. I know what it's like to be in other countries and to not have the freedoms that we have here. And to be able to defend my family, my friends, democracy and freedom. It sounds cheesy, but I still tear up every time that we do the national anthem at my kids' swim meet. I mean, it's real, and I'm just really grateful to be part of it.
So you had a passion for the team that you were joining. You didn't have a passion for creating your own personal story, even though that would be part of the entire journey. You had a passion for the calling that you were being pulled into.
I did. And because of that, I had to work really hard to try to make sure that I never slowed the team down. I knew I brought some strengths to the team. My background as an AWACS controller was very useful in the air-to-air environment because I was very comfortable there. And Thor, women, our bodies are built to pull G's better than man's.
I've heard that a couple times. Typically, a woman that's telling me that. And for the listeners that don't know, here's the background on it. Every time we pull G's, and what that means is we're doing an aggressive turn in the aircraft, and so our bodies and the aircraft through centrifugal force weigh more than they did before. So my 200-pound body under 9 G's weighs 1,800 pounds. And I'm not embarrassed to say that I passed out cold inside of a centrifuge as we were spinning that around, and I had to learn to be able to withstand 9 G's and keep the blood in my brain. And learn the techniques to do it. But it always came easier for females because you guys are physiologically built to withstand more G's.
Yeah, that's right. We like pulling G's. I like pulling G's. I tell you what I didn't like doing, though, was my first backseat ride. Before I was sent to pilot training, I made the transition from active duty to guard. My first backseat ride, I still had the long hair. They put me in the back. My hair was hanging down outside of the helmet. I went out there and, I was making sure I was right there with my pilot because I was just the backseater, as the girl in back. And so we go out there and we hop in, we fly our mission. I'm just so excited. I'm checking 6, I'm turning around. Of course, my hair is coming out of the bottom of the helmet all over the place. And we're taxiing back in at the end of the mission, and I'm just on cloud 9. And I want to make sure that when that canopy opens, I'm ready to go when he is. So I start, as we're taxiing in, I start unbuckling all of my latches. Well, the parachute riser catches my hair.
Oh, no.
Snaps me back into the seat. So now I'm basically one with the airplane. My hair is pinned into the airplane. It's wrapped all the way around the riser. And I'm the new hire. And I've already committed to not, distracting from the tempo of this mission. So we come in and I'm just pulling and I can't get my hair undone. And we're turning the corner and the marshaller is about to cross his wands, as we hit the parking spot and hit the brakes and stop. And I am just yanking and it is stuck. And I had like a foot of hair wrapped around this riser. And I'm looking down and I'm thinking, this is not going to happen. There is a solution. I just have to figure it out. And I look down and I see my parachute knife strapped to my G suit.
My gosh.
Solution. So I pull out the parachute knife and I cut my hair off as fast as I can as the canopy is opening and the engine's shut down and the sound's going, pew, and the canopy's open. And I'm cutting as fast as I can. And finally I get all that hair cut off and I'm like, oh, thank God. So I'm able to climb out of the jet. As I'm climbing out, I turn back around and I look and there's a foot of hair wrapped around this riser, and I'm just like, oh. So plus I'm like Jackie O'd my hair on one side. So there was that. But I didn't slow the team down. They did have to take that part of the aircraft apart. So, they had to get the hair out before it could fly again. So,
right.
But we made it to debrief on time. So
that's awesome. And for the listeners, that part of the jet, it's retracting like a regular seatbelt in a car would be, except it's much more powerful. So when you release those, they go and they snap back inside the seat that you're sitting in. And for your hair to get caught in that, I can't imagine. It must have been painful too as you're trying to get this out.
Oh, my pride was what was really hurting at that point.
Yeah. Well, okay, so now you go from getting your hair caught in the first backseat ride of the F-16 to then one day sitting alert in a fighter aircraft after the attacks of 9/11. Tell me a little bit about that story and how you were now contributing in a major way to the defense of our entire nation.
You know, it's funny because when I was little, I never thought I would even have this kind of opportunity. Medically, generationally, I never thought that I would be a fighter pilot, and to get to a point where here I was on alert. 9/11 had just happened, and the skies are quiet. Nobody is flying. The Rocky Mountains actually look purple. With the sunrise, and it's just incredible. And to be out there for the first mission that I did was we rolled in on a little Cessna. Doctor and his son coming back from Front Range Airport. We're doing a mission that our mighty fighter had, in our unit we'd never trained to do. I mean, units who were on the coasts, that kind of air protection was a common thing for them. But for us in the middle, we were used to taking the fight overseas.
Yeah.
And that was what our training and background had been. So to now be doing an intercept on a very low, very slow aircraft, and telling them you have to go back to your base was pretty incredible. I mean, nobody's flying, and here I am. I still feel like a little kid, and I'm in this multi-million-dollar fighter, and the weight of the protection of our state is on my shoulders. And it's just it was an honor. It was an honor to be there, and I'm just grateful for the training that we got, that we were able to jump in like that, and immediately, on 9/11, from one coast to the other, no matter what fighter pilot you were, no matter what squadron you were in, everybody showed up. Lines of communication were down. People just showed up at work.
Yeah.
And they hopped in their jets, loaded down with maybe no live weapons, maybe just the gun. Certainly not live air-to-air missiles, which is what you would use to take down an airliner. And we just all came together as one to protect our great nation. And you don't mess with the USA. You just don't, especially on our home soil.
And it's a day that's emotional for everybody as we reflect back on it, and just the overwhelming nature of not knowing what would be next. I mean, we didn't know that the two towers would be the last of it, and the Pentagon would be the last attack. We just kind of thought something was coming around the corner at any second, and to be a part of that defense must have been amazing. And I think one thing that I key in on your message as well is that the military is a great example of how teams can come together, and the silly barriers that we put up between ethnic groups, between gender, between religious background, all just fades away when the mission's on the line. And that's such a challenge for the clients that we support. And we are part of many conversations, particularly in Silicon Valley these days, where we're helping out large tech companies to break down those barriers as well. And I just would be curious to know, from your perspective, what are some of the ways, there's tons of ways we can talk about how the military could have done it better, and it's still a work in progress. But to have that moment where you all are on one team and you all are fighting together as one group, what are some of the ways that other teams can look to get there?
Well, I think one of the advantages that the U.S. military has is that we know our why. We are drawn together for the greater good of the protection of our nation. And that puts the fight in us, and it brings us together as a cohesive team. Organizations, some organizations have an easier time with that larger why. I've been working with some pharmaceuticals lately, and when you're trying to cure cancer and other nasty diseases out there, that's a pretty big why. But even in those cases, when you understand the longer term, larger reason you're together, where I see the most success is when the leaders have figured out, but they need to remind their teams every day about that why. You have to remind your team. You have to work to be an organization that everybody wants to be a part of, and then model that every day through open communication, debriefing, creating that culture of camaraderie and trust that I think is so effective to help create that high-performing team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And a lot of companies will say, yeah, but I mean, you guys are fighter pilots, you're fighting for the defense of our nation. Of course you got a strong why. Or you're creating a cancer drug. Of course you have a strong why. And I always push back and say that any group, any team can create a compelling why. If you're going to ask somebody to spend, a third of their life and their time working towards a common goal at an occupation, you better have a why defined. You better have something that's exciting that you're pitching to them. Like Simon Sinek says, people don't buy what you sell, they buy why you do it. And the why is the most important thing we can come up with. Any parting thoughts as we wrap up on how you would help a team to start to codify that why and stop going after those tactical little short-term quota wins of, we got to have somebody that looks a certain way so that we can take this picture for optics? How do we get out of that conversation and go towards the compelling why that, of course, we'd have people of every color, gender, and background joining us for this?
Well, I think we get caught up sometimes in thinking of diversity as that bad word. You either got hired because you're diverse or you got passed over because you're not diverse enough. And I think we lose sight of what diversity really is. If you're trying to create a truly authentically diverse team, then it's not necessarily something that you can see when you walk in the room. You can hear it in the conversations from the diverse backgrounds, from the diverse experience. You can see it on the resumes with the different talents that have been brought to the table. And I think that we all need to focus on the bigger picture. If you are coming into an organization, don't be asking what they're going to do for you to make you comfortable. You need to figure out what you're going to bring. You need to bring your A game, work to do your best every day. Give people grace when they maybe don't quite handle the diverse part of the situation as well as they could. I think most of us are just trying to make it all work at the end of the day. And I think it's important that that we remember that everybody is hired for some great reason. Everybody has a talent that they're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
So work hard to be part of that.
Yeah, there's a great book out right now called Team Genius that talks about how diversity is so much more than optics, and the right teams that will identify that and recognize the fact that a heterogeneous team, meaning a team that's composed of people that approach problems in different ways, is much more effective empirically through research, through experiments, more effective than that team that's comprised of the same, whether it's type of people that look the same way or they really that think the same way. That's really what it comes down to. You can't have that homogeneity on the team. That team that's diverse is going to be more effective. But I think what's so insightful in your comment too is that you can't break down all the walls at once. In other words, when you showed up at basic training, you didn't look up at the ramp and say, "Hey, I'm here. Take that sign down." You knew that this would be a work in progress. And by the way, that sign's gone right now. You go to the Air Force Academy today, that sign is gone, and that's a good thing that's happened. But it is a journey, and it's something that takes place over time, and you are part of that journey along the way, not just breaking down the walls as you showed up.
I think it's important that if you recognize if you're sacrificing quality to build diversity, then you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
because there are, you just need to spread a wider net. You know, you need to advertise to more people. You need to work harder to be a company or team that everybody wants to be a part of, so that you have all those resumes to choose from, because everybody's clamoring to become part of your team. And, you know, I think it's also important to remember that when you're looking at people's backgrounds, there are some things that sometimes can be overlooked. You know, if you're a mom, if you're a military spouse, guess what? Those guys, there is no off the clock. There is no, I'm not showing up to work today. You know, they have to find a solution, and they do find a solution, whether they're overworked, exhausted, whatever. I mean, there's, when you look at the people that you have in front of you, sometimes their biggest talents aren't necessarily the first thing that pops up on the page.
Yeah, and I would have one last question for you. As you look to send a message to people of any background that are being told that they don't belong in a group right now, and having to break down those barriers and having to join new teams, what would your message be?
You can do it. You can do anything that you want. Just make sure that you are following your dreams, not someone else's. And you have to listen to that voice of truth that is the clear voice you're going to hear when you listen inside of your own heart and ignore all the noise around you. Find a mentor, find somebody who supports you and believes in you. Find many mentors to support you and believe in you. But there is no reason to give up. Never, 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 never give up. Somebody may tell you can't do something. They told me I would never fly. But you know what? I did. And it's not because of me doing anything great. It's because my parents taught me to never give up, to be strong, and to just keep going. One more day. Just try one more time, because you never know. You never know if the next attempt is going to be the one that's going to get you that dream that you've wanted your whole life. Do not give up on your dreams. Work together. Find some people to help you out, and just go for it. Get tough. Don't look for excuses. Make it happen.
Jackie, I think that you're going to have some new requests to be a mentor from some of the people that are listening to us today. I want to thank you, first of all, for your service. You're an inspiring person inside and out. I'm proud to have you on the Afterburner team and to be a part of your team, and to have learned from you over the years, to have graduated from the Air Force Academy, gone on to be a fighter pilot, and now to be speaking in front of crowds of thousands of people. And you continue to lead the way. So thanks for doing what you do, and thanks for joining the Business Thorcast today.
Thanks for having me on the Business Thorcast today, Thor. It's an honor to be part of the team, and it was an honor to be here today. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Business Thorcast. For more information on today's episode, please visit our website at www.thebusinessthorcast.com. And if you like this podcast, please rate it and leave a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. Thor, over and out.